Hey guys, welcome back to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Dr. Kori Propst. We want to start a little series on how to set up a diet, something, Kori, that I don't think have really talked about in this nuanced way, which is from the perspective of somebody just getting started. So because you and I do this for a living, this is, decades and decades into our careers, it's easy to get lost in just what we see from our side. And a lot of times new clients who have never even dieted at all, this could be the first time they've ever attempted some kind of major body change. What are they experiencing? What decisions are they trying to make? So I thought this would be a good little series to get into, even into the deeper physiology of what they are experiencing internally, but they may not realize what's happening.
Yeah, this will be a fun one, Joe, I think, because just in terms of the whole process of setting the goal itself, there are lots of questions that many of us haven't even thought about asking ourselves in order to best prepare for the journey ahead. What the process might be like. So,
well, I mentioned people just getting started for the first time, and that is that blank slate mentality, which can often be easier. I personally, after coaching clients for 25 or 30 years, probably enjoy that a little bit more because they're hungrier to learn. They don't have the bad habits that you have to weed through. And also kind of a lot of cynicism from past failures or challenges.
Sure.
So, let me go back to those days, even coaching somebody who was their very first time, even when I started dieting, at 12, 13 years old, 16, 18. And, I remember those thoughts where you're willing to try just about anything because you read this article, you get some new information, you're gung-ho, your brain is just full of excitement, and that carries you forward farther than you might think. Like there are physiologically difficult things. Some type of fad diets are horrific physically, and yet we don't mind. We just go through it and we do it. And we come out the other side successful most of the time. And then, real life hits us again with that wave of reality. And then, it may all fall apart. But it's that initial zeal, I think, that you almost have to try and replicate every time you do something like this.
There's the release of a lot of dopamine initially when we have an idea and it's something that sounds really good, and we look into the future and we see this outcome that we get really excited about achieving. Dopamine is the hormone of desire, right? Desire, and it's very future oriented, and it produces a lot of that energy that's underneath that sense of motivation. However, it doesn't last. But to your point, we can utilize that and capitalize on that in a very skillful way by asking certain questions and not just being impulsive and jumping into something because it sounds really good and there's this image out there that we're fixated upon. So I do too agree with you that when we start with clients who have never embarked on any sort of nutritional regimen, they've just been eating, they just ate and never had necessarily a problem with weight or any health issues or anything, and now they may be getting some blood tests back that are showing some concerning things happening. That it does, when we don't have behaviors that we're trying to maybe necessarily get rid of or modify or change in any way, it does make it a little bit easier to kind of install new habits. So
let's start right there. I've got two sets of two clients as examples. Okay. Two of them are diet warriors. They've done this a million times, and two of them are fairly young, not total novices, but they're new and they're excited and they're learning. So you got these war horses over here, you got the fresh troops over here, and it's been an interesting middle ground,
Yeah.
because, one of the My Epic Life entries I did a couple weeks ago talked about, there's so much growth opportunity in the tension
Mm-hmm.
between two opposites or two dichotomies. So, let's stay right there, kind of midline, and explore where these four people are. Two of them start out with a lot of that old baggage and that cynicism, and so they instantly start over analyzing everything. Well, what about this? What about this? And you're not thinking about this, and this is what I want to do, and blah 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 blah. And it's almost this little mini war between flexibility and structure, something we talk about a lot. And so these two initially scream out for structure because they've been through this before. They've probably had other coaches, and so they really want to be told exactly what to do. So then I give them exact meal plans, and they start arguing about, well, I can't do that this Saturday, and I can't do it then, and what about this? And I need you to make me a 74th meal plan because on one day I might want strawberries instead of blueberries.
Yeah.
And so they start getting so bogged down in these details that they almost forget what it's like to think. They're just stuck in these trenches. And then these other two newer clients, who this is a little bit more unique to them, they're just excited and they love hearing ideas and they love receiving information and they'll think about it. And there's just a lot more trust in that. Okay, yeah, great. I'll do that this week. Fantastic. Awesome. And they come back with new questions and new experiences. Mm-hmm. And again, they just don't seem to even feel the psychological challenges or the physiological changes that could throw them off base. And it may be like you're saying, that they've got this wave of dopamine that's kind of covering that stuff up. So my question to you, Dr. Propst, is we've got pros and cons to both groups. Mm-hmm. How do we bring their strengths in so that they can utilize those without going so overboard that they're crippling themselves?
Well, how do we bring their strengths in? I think as coaches, we have to become really adept at being able to point out what those are. All of our strengths, if we don't have some level of awareness of them or recognition of when they're best used and when they can become significant weaknesses to us, because every resource of ours can be over or underused and needs to be utilized in a real skillful way and depending upon the context of the situation. But we have a responsibility as coaches to carefully begin to point out to our clients what we see. And that can be really challenging, especially among those, we have this camp over here who is pretty entrenched in their views and what they believe to be their understandings of things. The stories they tell themselves, about what's going to work and what hasn't, and what's okay and what's not. But am I answering your question? How do we begin to bring their strengths in? There's a level of reflection that has to begin occurring. And I think on the very front end with clients, we have to ask them to engage in this process in a reflective way. Can we remain open to considering that there are other possibilities outside of what your previous experiences have been?
Exactly. And if I could talk to these two groups as groups, because obviously I'm having individual conversations with them, in a very general sense, I would say to the more experienced, slightly cynical people, okay, relax a little bit, realize that these may be your experiences in the past, mm-hmm. but you're coming into something new, you're trying new things because you're hoping it's going to work better, you're going to have increased results. So have a little bit more trust, have a little bit more openness, mm-hmm. and you gotta keep all of that past history in context. To the newer people, I would say don't let that excitement sweep you away into just blindly following. Because even if you are with somebody who you could trust, you still want to question enough things and engage in the learning process so you can really start pigeonholing how this information is going to actually help you long term, not just follow the process until the end and then say, great, I'm done, goodbye. So again, there are strengths on both sides. There's strengths in that uniqueness and there are strengths in that experience, but we also have to reach toward that other side a little bit.
And I think one of the things that we can do as coaches is to have our clients asking themselves certain questions throughout the process. And when we start, know that we're going to be monitoring and looking at these different variables, not just how much protein, how much carbs, how much fat, how many total calories, not all that, yes. And how am I growing through this process? What am I learning? How is what I'm doing now maybe flying in the face of what I learned before? What mindset am I moving into this process with? Is this do I find myself moving into this kind of fixed mindset? Like, this is the way it is. I'm going to tell my coach what's going to work and what isn't. Or am I approaching this from a more growth perspective? Environmentally, like, what am I noticing is going on around me? Are people reacting to me differently based on what I'm doing? So, yeah, Joe, I think you make a really good point that this is not all practical stuff. There's a lot of adaptive sort of variables, including what our resources are and how we've used them, that we really need to key in on as our clients are getting started and through the process.
Yep. And one of the things that I would close with in just this first part of the series is anybody out there who is starting, whether it's your very first diet or you're really trying to engage in something that's new to add on to your existing history. You know, we have another couple of clients, Kori, that we're working with together, and it's a couple, spouse couple, and one has been with us before, and he now has the support of his spouse who's going to be doing it with us, and I see again that renewed enthusiasm. And both of them have done one thing that I think is very critical, is that they have taken the time to build this into their lives. They've gotten a gym membership. They've embarked in some new training with us. They're doing nutrition. They're doing mindset work. They're saying, okay, this is how we're going to structure our day. We went to the grocery store together this weekend. We also are going to supplement that with a food service company. So we're going to have some meals delivered, which we've liked. And so you can see that they've just carved this out. They didn't just try and cram, okay, I'm going to start dieting tomorrow. It's going to be easy, no problem. I'm just going to eat less, boom, hit Monday on the run. Yeah. No, they're thinking through it. They're planning, and it's going to be a much easier transition because they're giving them the space to learn and to experience as they go.
On a psychological level, what I'm thinking about is, are there things that I can learn to let go of? Because on a practical level, like you've very detailed or in a very detail-oriented way said about these clients, they've asked, are there certain things I'm going to need to let go of to make this easier of a transition in my life? And because there's time. And time spent doing some other things that we're going to have to let go of in order to bring this in to be able to focus on it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, guys, I'm excited about this new series. Again, we're going to title it something like Beginning a New Diet or Beginning Again. But it's going to be all about those practical first steps, including some of the things psychologically and physiologically happening that you may not be aware of, but will definitely help you. So Kori, thank you very much for inputting into this. It's going to be a great one.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time.